It's looking more and more like the A's just should have stayed in Kansas City.
You are Locked On MLB. Your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all the Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been a podcaster for well over a decade now, as well as doing a lot of things in TV and written stuff and movie stuff and all this other stuff. But I'm about to begin my sixth season here at the Locked On Podcast Network. And pitchers and catchers are reporting. So the off season is, I think it's technically over. We've seen Yamamoto throw some pitches. That's pretty cool. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now. You can follow me. I'm your pal Sully at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And be sure to subscribe to us here on YouTube. And make sure to like, subscribe. Sometimes you get to hear when I'm doing these live feeds like I'm doing right now. And if you are watching the live feed, feel free to throw some questions here into the chat. I would love to see who's watching, listening to us, and who is an everyday Sully. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app and create an account and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase. As long as Blake Snell and Bellinger and Montgomery and Chapman are all still available, I got to find other stuff to talk about. And the A's debacle just is the gift that keeps on giving, because the news came out from the San Francisco Chronicle. And yes, Rob L., my buddy, who's a huge Las Vegas sports guy, yes, that is part of the Bay Area media, which seems to be biased, I don't know, against Fisher because they've only known him for a long time. I wasn't sure if I was reading The Onion. I wasn't sure if I was reading a parody. I needed to see 4 or 5 confirmations of what I was seeing in these tweets that I saw regarding what was happening, the latest news, because it seemed like, oh, we're now just making stuff up. And I looked up, and Brody Brazil, who's a tremendous reporter, does great videos about the situation, confirmed it. And Susan Slusser, who's a great follow, confirmed it. John Shea of the San Francisco Chronicle. The A's this week are meeting with officials from Oakland. That's what's happening now. This is how weird it's got. With all the absolute horrible bad blood that has gone on between the A's and the city of Oakland about this person said that, he said, she said, anger, deceit, lies, pointing fingers, watching the A's crumble, the stadium fall apart. People saying, oh, well, we can't do this. You said you'd do that. People blatantly saying untrue things, that just so much venom, and finally saying, we're done with you. The city of Oakland hates the A's. The A's hate the city of Oakland and say, we're out of here. There's a problem. There was no there to go to. And we've seen the issues of the A's wanting to move to Las Vegas being, where the hell are they going to go when the lease runs out? This is the sort of thing you should think about before you say, I'm out of here. And the A's have been kicking the can and kicking the barrel right down the road for literally decades. This has not come up as a surprise to anybody. This lease has not been a surprise to anybody. The situation of them potentially moving. And the fact of the matter is, there is no way the A's can come back. There's none. There's none. And this isn't even a tearful farewell. I had an instance, as you know, I'm a teacher, I'm a special ed teacher, and I had an instance where one of my students had a final day. She was moving to another school. One of my students who's severely on the autism spectrum, and we had a wonderful day saying goodbye to her. And the very next day, she was there again because something didn't happen in the paperwork, so she had to come back to the school. And it was a little anticlimactic. That's not what's going on here. This is the person saying, breaking up with someone, saying, I'm out of here. We're done. Slamming the door and walking out and going, oh God, I have no place to crash tonight. This is Felix Unger not having Oscar Madison to crash at his place. And now, to throw another cultural reference to you, where the A's going to stand outside the Oakland City Hall holding up a boombox like John Cusack and say anything to try to win them back? This is all stemmed from the fact that they were looking around going, well, they can't play in Las Vegas in 2025. Do you know why? There's no stadium. A critical element to playing baseball is, bear with me, to play in a stadium that's viable. They can't play in the outdoor minor league stadium. That's what it looked like they were going to do for a few years. They were going to move right into the minor league ballpark. And what a find, how do you do that would be to Las Vegas fans. Say, welcome. You have Major League Baseball. Here's your 110 loss team playing in a minor league ballpark outside. What? So not only is Major League Ballpark not prepared, I'm sorry, Rob L. and everyone else who's for this, they don't know where it is. They don't know where it's going to be. Yes, they've been saying things like, well, we think it's going to be here. We got a rendering for there, but there's nothing official. And if there's one thing following this A's situation for the last bunch of decades, there's been, as I said, no shortage of artist renderings, no shortage of people saying, hey, it could be here, it could be there. And still, they're playing in the same crumbling ballpark that they've been playing in and complaining about since the glory days of the 1970s. I know, I've read 40 or 50 books on the topic. I know a little something about this. And now they're talking about, like, oh, could they play in Salt Lake City? Could they play in Sacramento? Could they play in Portland? Could they play here? Could they play there? And now they're looking up and they realize, oh, crap. Beyond the fact that we don't have a stadium to play in, we may not get the media revenue because the media revenue requires them playing within a certain radius in the Bay Area. And, oh, poopy, we need to come up with something really fast. Not like, hey, we're going to explore some things. Like, they have to come up with something in the next few months, probably a few weeks. And the other options don't look viable. And now they're going to come back, and this is according to the article in the San Francisco Chronicle, that the officials of the A's are going to be meeting with officials from the city of Oakland. Now, will not feature Fisher, the owner of the A's, because he's persona non grata in the city of Oakland. It'll probably be A's president Dave Kaval and some of the county supervisors and everything, because they've got to the point, and this is what happens when you don't plan. And I'm sorry, folks, they didn't plan. I mean, you could spin it any way you want. They didn't plan. They didn't plan. How can you say that they planned if they said, oh, we're out of here. We got to be out by the end of the 2024 season, and you don't have a place to play. And this has been going on for years. They don't have a plan. And this is the team that Las Vegas is supposed to be getting excited about. this fumbling and bumbling organization without the whole sexiness of Brad Pitt pulling it off with the dude from Guardians of the Galaxy and Moneyball. No, this is just dumb ball, and they may have to go back to Oakland. And I would come back. I'm going to talk about not only the insanity of this, but how I think Oakland should react and what they should do. By the way, before we go on, I do want to talk about the trivia, which was which player is the all-time home run leader in Washington baseball history, including the Nationals and the previous two Senators teams. And we had a couple of people. Scott Campbell said Frank Howard, the late Frank Howard. No, that's a good guess. One Horstmeyer, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and Big John 08865 both got it correct. It was Ryan Zimmerman. Ryan Zimmerman is the all-time Washington home run leader, and he's part of the current incarnation of the Washington Nationals and played on the World Series winner. So there you go. Now we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about what I think Oakland should say to them. We're doing it live. I almost pulled a Bill O'Reilly, and if you have any idea what that means, then you're just as silly as I am. Hey, I recently got tickets to the final game in Oakland, thinking that I was going to be seeing the last ever game played in the Oakland Coliseum by the A's. By the way things are going, maybe that's not the case. But if you want to be getting some big tickets for the games coming out, let me just say Gametime is the way to go. Gametime does everything, and they do everything right. From all the ways you can check from where the view of the seat is. You get killer last minute deals, all in prices, and the best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. As I said, you can see the view from the seat before you buy. You know exactly what to expect when you arrive. But all in prices is the best part because they show you the total up front. You know you're getting a real deal. There's no hidden fees. There's not like, wait a minute, I didn't get any deal out of this. What the heck is this for? Forget about that. And you can buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. And Gametime has deals right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts, which is helpful here in Los Angeles if you're trying to get to Dodger games in all that traffic. It is the place to find last minute seats. You find exclusive flash deals and sponsor deals on tickets for football, baseball, basketball, hockey, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And with zone deals, you pick the section and Gametime picks the seats for big time savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets and the lowest prices. Do you know what they are? They're guaranteed. We're going to talk a little bit about the fact that Locked On has created the first ever national sports streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now, available on the free Fire TV channels app. Now, let me get rid of the Gametime thing there. Sorry about that, folks. Wow. It's silly time. And now the A's are going to have to come crawling back to Oakland. Now, I don't believe they're going to do it because I think this is basically Manfred and Major League Baseball saying, hey, you better come up with a solution because we're not going to do that whole contract thing, this BS. You better come up with a place to play and fast. Hi, Oakland. Now, if I were the A's, and I'm not, I know the A's pay 1.2 or $1.3 million of rent to use the Coliseum. I would tell them to kick rocks. I really would. I would tell them to scram. You don't want to be part of this? Fine. Or offer them a ridiculous lease. Because Oakland has all the cards. They have all the cards. Everyone in Oakland has psychologically said goodbye to them. Go away. And everyone in Oakland knows that if the A's extend this, it's not because they're going to stay. It's because they didn't plan. And they got into this stupid situation because they hastily did this move, even though they had literally months to plan for it. Months, Jesus, decades to plan for it. And if I'm the city of Oakland, I said, no, you don't get to do this. You don't get to jerk us around, yank us around, let the team deteriorate and the Coliseum deteriorate, and then blame the community and this, that, and the other thing, and not listen to this plan and not listen to that plan, and rule this out and rule that out, and be lusting openly for Las Vegas. You don't get to do that and then be like, hey man, we didn't plan for what we were going to do. Can we hang out here for a little bit longer? If I were the A's, I'd say, sure. If you sign a 10-year lease, sure. If you sign a 10-year lease and if you break the lease and move to Las Vegas, you have to pay X number of penalties. I would absolutely put them through the ringer. Because what leverage do the A's have at this point? They need to have some revenue. I mean, believe it or not, they could be in worse shape in terms of the quality of the team if they're not playing in a real major league situation with real major league revenue. And how is Las Vegas going to embrace that team? Hey, we got these klutzes showing up. I would hang them to dry. This has demonstrated why it's easier to move teams like hockey teams or basketball teams, because there's plenty of arenas and college football stadiums that an NFL team could play in a temporary basis, or a hockey or basketball team could play on a temporary basis. If, let's say, an NFL team wanted to play in Albuquerque, all right, and who knows, Albuquerque's a growing city. You never know. And it's not just, Breaking Bad fans. It's a lot of people there. And if you want to put a team in Albuquerque, they can go play at the University Stadium at the University of New Mexico, which seats about 40, 50,000 people. Not a lot, but enough to do it temporarily. There you go. Boom. But you can't do that with baseball because there's not a lot of major league ready stadiums just sitting around. By the way, the A's I mentioned this the other day, the A's used to play in Kansas City, and the stadium that was built eventually for the Royals was originally designed to keep the A's from moving. And Kauffman Stadium opened up several years after the A's left, and the Royals played at first in Municipal Stadium, and they moved into Kauffman Stadium. Well, plans were announced today of where they were going to build a new Royals Stadium. So Kansas City will have made two very good stadiums after the A's left and never got one good one. By the way, there's already a lot of people who are kind of hemming and hawing about what is going on in Kansas City. Apparently, I can't claim to know the city of Kansas City very well, but apparently where the Kansas City Star newspaper used to be, they have this big plaza and everything like that. They're going to knock that down, and they want to build the new Royals Stadium there. Fortunately, that will mean knocking down a lot of small businesses as well. Hopefully the Royals can do something like incorporate some of those businesses into the stadium. I don't know the answer. This is one of the problems of whenever you build a stadium and it's not in a big open field or a big open parking lot, then you're going to get situations like this. I'm not of the mindset of, hey, but it brings in lots of revenue, because there's been mixed reviews about how much revenue a ballpark will bring in. But seeing a stadium in downtown Kansas City is great. And the way that they got some enthusiasm at that, as we mentioned before, we had Jack Johnson from Lockdown Royals there, is, yes, the Royals are a 100-loss team, just like the A's are a 100-loss team. But the Royals at least are putting together some talent, and they have a budding superstar in Bobby Witt Jr., who they signed to a long-term deal to basically say, Guess what? By the time we move into that stadium, we may have a good team. Meanwhile, the A's have been putting two sticks of dynamite in this team, a team that finished first place in the COVID year and was contending for much of 2021. It really wasn't that long ago that the A's put a contending product on the field. Now they're a disaster, a complete disaster, and are begging Oakland to have them back. Meanwhile, the A's old home, Kansas City, is making all the right moves to keep them steady. And by the way, I was looking at one of the maps of where they want to plop this new ballpark. Right close by to the new ballpark is the T-Mobile Arena, of which is an indoor arena. They do a lot of professional bull riding and other stuff there. But at a moment's notice, that could be a hockey arena. That could be a basketball arena. And if you have like the Arizona Coyotes or some other team that's floundering and unable to get any real momentum in their fan base and have to move, they could play in Kansas City tomorrow. Again, it's easier to move those other sports teams. And someone should have whispered in the A's ear, hey, before you start playing hardball and talk about how we want out and all this other stuff and alienate every aspect of the city of Oakland, maybe you should make sure you actually have a place to play the games. It is the time for basketball. Football season's over. Baseball season's right around the corner. But we're talking hoops in terms of your betting, in terms of your parlays, and in terms of your FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's $150 if your team wins or your bet wins or whatever happens. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel is an official sportsbook partner of the National Basketball Association. Quick reminder of Locked On having the first ever national 24/7 streaming sports channel on YouTube and also now on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Say that 3 times fast. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts on Locked On, plus national shows like this one covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Day now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Free Fire. Say that 10 times fast. Let's see. We got a bunch of people who are watching this particular episode. I have not opened up the comments yet. Chris Bonner got. I'll do it live. That's right. My parody of the Bill O'Reilly. Justin Lamas made the point the Rams played at USC Stadium for 4 years. Yeah. And when the Seahawks were building their new ballpark, they played at the University of Washington for a couple of years. When the expansion Panthers were created, they played at Clemson for a couple of years. You can do stuff like that. When the Metrodome was torn down, the Vikings played at University of Minnesota. You could pull stuff off. You could put an NFL team in Boise tomorrow if you don't mind them having a blue field. Let's see what V says. Wonder how much the offset of the TV deal compares to no attendance for 4 years because of the boycott of fans. I don't even think it's as much of a boycott, V, as being in the Bay Area for a bunch of that time, as it was apathy. When they know this, every time they get used to a player that they know the minute they ask for more than $9.22, they're going to be traded away. The fans who show up there every single day at Oakland are diehard, wonderful fans, but you can't expect a huge fan base to be following the team when it's crumbling. The ownership has absolutely no interest in the team. They're dirt poor in an incredibly affluent region of the country. It just makes no sense to me. Um, but yeah, I think TV revenue is a big part of it. And it's probably the reason why they're crawling back to Oakland is one person probably carried the one and realized, hey, maybe this is you know, this is the thing to do. Chris Bonner writes, I'm not saying they're right. I just like them in Oakland. Yeah, I like them in Oakland too. I've made this very clear, for myself personally, I would love to see two teams in the Bay Area. That's because I spend all my summers in the Bay Area. And there's a outside chance I may move back to the Bay Area. And I like having an AL and an NL team there. Not that there's really any difference between the AL and the NL anymore, but that's a different podcast. But I understand that we've seen since the nanosecond the A's showed up in 1968, and our trivia question is going to be about that a little bit, that at one point or another, either the Giants were threatening to move, as the Giants threatened to move in the 1970s, then the A's threatened to move in the late 70s, then the Giants almost moved in the early 90s, and then the A's have been threatened to move ever since. And it's because, I hate to say it, can't support two teams. And I'll tell you, by the way, something really sad about the Warriors. This is a tangent, but one of the sad thing about the Warriors moving across the bay to San Francisco is that if the Warriors stayed in their arena in Oakland, and there was no reason for them to move, none, zero. I know they built this shiny new palace, but come on. You would have had a nice representation of the different regions of the San Francisco Bay Area. You would have had the Giants playing in the city of San Francisco. You would have had the 49ers playing in Santa Clara, which is part of Silicon Valley. You would have had the Sharks playing in the South Bay of San Jose, and you would have had the Warriors playing in the East Bay. And the entire region, it would have been a unifying, especially with the Raiders left and everything, but it would have been kind of a unifying sports world that all the major San Francisco, Silicon Valley, South Bay, East Bay, that whole area would have one team that was there, and everyone would root for the teams, but each region would have their point of pride. But God forbid the East Bay have anything. So I'm there you go. And there's a couple other things here. Oh, this is pretty funny because I was Justin Lamas again. Justin's on fire today. He said this is like a man who cheated on his wife, wants to marry his mistress, and yet is going back for divorce and child support proceedings. Yeah, that's a little bit what it's like. I always thought, like, psychologically, when the Mets built a new ballpark and they made it look like Ebbets Field, I always thought that was weird because they're honoring the team that left instead of honoring the Mets, who have a unique personality, and they just all this sort of baby boomer nostalgia to make it look like Ebbets Field. And it's like, no, have it look like Shea Stadium. That's who the Mets are. But I digress. At least the Mets stuck around. If anyone knows a lot more about and Chris Bonner says the Royals have two champions in my lifetime. I wouldn't call them a joke. Did I call them a joke? No, I don't think I could. Maybe someone else called them a joke in the chat. Either way. And yeah, and Justin Lamas points out the Mets' two colors are Dodgers and Giants. That's true. And Logan Murray writes, Oakland leverage to keep the Athletics name in future expansion. Logan, there's no way baseball will expand to Oakland. None. We have in some ways, if the A's leave, baseball will give a huge sigh of relief because, as I've said, and this is someone who's lived many years in the Bay Area, and I love that the A's and the Giants are in the Bay Area. Okay, I adore the Bay Area and Bay Area sports. However, it's not a two-team market. It was a mistake to probably put two teams in there in the first place. And there are so many other markets. A team could survive in Montreal with the right ownership. A team could survive in Portland, especially because of the deeply rooted fan base they have there. A team is going to thrive in Nashville. It's one of the most obvious teams to put a place to put a team. You could arguably put another team in Texas, in Austin, San Antonio. I don't know, put a team in Charlotte. There's so many other places to put a team before you throw another one into the Bay Area. And the A's are going to move, and we all have let go. Okay? We've all let go of that. And as much as I would like the A's to stay for my personal reasons, I get it. And it breaks my heart because there's so many wonderful A's fans out there that, my heart's going to break for the Wes Hoffmans and everyone I know who's out there, Dolph Pfefferbaum and everyone who loves these A's. I get it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I don't think the city of Oakland is going to do anything to extend their lease. And I think the A's are going to be wandering. They're going to walk the earth. Would the A's fail in Nashville? Chris Bonner asks, I've been saying if the A's have to move, they should move to Nashville, either Nashville or Portland. Why not? And they could play in the minor league stadium there for a couple of years and then build a new place. But I digress. Hey, I think this year the A's will play their final game in Oakland. The trivia question is about the first game in Oakland, not the first game of the Oakland A's. The A's actually began the 1968 season on the road. But when they played the first ever game at the Oakland Coliseum, which A's player hit the first ever home run for the A's in the Oakland Coliseum? Which former first-round draft pick hit the first home run in the first ever game at the Oakland Coliseum for the A's? That is your trivia question. So follow us at Locked On MLB Pods. And thanks for all of you who jumped in. I just was being bombarded by the comments and all of you who were watching us live. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Completely being baffled by the insanity of the A's knocking on Oakland's door and saying, hey, can we talk? This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.